So this talk continues our series on how to create automated documentation for Dynamics. In our last video, we talked about Dynamics UI automation, starting with a Gherkin file with a series of given when and then statements written in the English-like language, which get mapped with SpecFlow to empty C# functions. Within those C# functions, we're utilizing the Microsoft Easy Repro library, which has a series of code already written for us for Microsoft Dynamics to automate Dynamics in multiple web browsers. And then at the very bottom of that layer is the actual Selenium host, which picks an individual web browser to choose. So how do we do automatic documentation? Well, first of all, we have to look at our user scenarios. So a scenario is broken down into features, feature descriptions, the actual scenario, and a series of steps. And what we're doing is we're going to utilize within Visual Studio and SpecFlow, it allows you to attach hooks as these things execute. So for example, when we attach a hook to the feature, we can actually gather the feature title and the feature description and go ahead and write those to an in-memory Word document. When the scenario comes up, we can gather the scenario title as well and continue to add on and build our paragraph in our Word document. And then we'll gather each step individually as it executes, and we're going to capture a screenshot for that step. And the way we're doing that, we're using a library that's available through NuGet, which is the Salt and Soft document library for Word document creation, and it's going to attach to the various hooks. So the hooks we're attaching to are before feature, after feature, before a scenario executes, and then before step and after step. Within Visual Studio, let's go ahead and look at example user scenario. So this is a scenario like we talked about before. It's just text in a document. Behind the scenes is a code behind that's actually generating code that's going to raise various events in SpecFlow. Series of given, when, and then events are raised. And that's going to basically attach to code that we've written for those particular events. So when a individual text event is raised, we have to go and match that against a method that we've generated. And if you don't have a method that matches, SpecFlow will let you know. And it also can generate the empty shell of the event so that you can just write the code. So you've seen all this before, the actual events. So what you haven't seen is actually all this is derived from AutoDocBase. So it's just a base class. The nice part about the base class is essentially you can take any of your steps. So if you've already done a lot of work with Selenium, you've already created a lot of these steps, well, you can just utilize the base class, and it's going to go ahead and attach to all your features, all your scenarios, all your steps, and behind the scenes create the document for you. So like I said, we're attaching to the before feature, the after feature, before scenario, before step, after step. And you can see that it's basically calling this class called auto.gen. So we can just go there. So inside this class, you can see we have the same thing, before feature, before step, after step. So let's look at before feature. So what happens there? Well, we have the ability to go into the context of SpecFlow and retrieve the title and description of the feature. We're going to create a section in our Word document. We're going to set margins and everything for that section. We're going to add the section to our core document. We're going to basically create a paragraph. We're going to create some formatted text in that paragraph, which is essentially just going to be the feature title and feature description. And then we're going to add that paragraph to our section, which in turn also adds it to our document. And then before scenario, we're going to gather the scenario title from the context, and we're going to format a paragraph there as well. We're going to add that paragraph into our section, which in turn adds it to our document. The before step, same kind of thing. We're gathering the step text, creating a formatted paragraph, adding it to our section, which in turn adds it to our document. After step is where we actually take the screenshot. So how does the screenshot work? So when you're executing Selenium code, you're working with an iWebDriver interface. The iWebDriver interface supports the ability to get a screenshot. So it captures a screenshot, and then basically you're going to write that as a memory stream in PNG format as a new picture, and you're going to add that right into the document. So nothing ever goes to disk. It's all in memory. It's capturing basically a PNG byte array from the WebDriver interface, creating a picture in your document, and everything's in memory up until the very last step, which is after the feature executes right here. So after the feature executes, we're just generating a random file name, which includes the date, time, the ticks since midnight, so the number of ticks that's happened since midnight, adds it all to a docx extension, and then actually just writes it out. And then, so the whole thing happens in memory up until the very end of the feature where it creates the Word document. So let's go ahead and execute that and see how it looks. So we're using a test version of SpecFlow, so it's going to have a delay of 8 seconds before it starts, which is fine. We're going to log in. We're going to be at the dashboards. It's going to navigate to Sales Contacts. And then it's going to click the ribbon to create a new contact. So we're navigating to Sales Contacts. Now it's going to click the ribbon for a new contact. It's going to populate all the fields for the new contact that we've populated in our user test scenario. It's going to click the ribbon and save this contact, and it's going to compare the email address of the saved contact to what we expected it to be in our test scenario. So as you can see, it came back with a green check mark, which means the test passed. And we can see here the test succeeded. And behind the scenes, it would have generated a Word document for us. So here's that Word document that it created, our feature title, the feature description, the scenario title, the step text, and the screenshot. And it'll repeat the step text and screenshot for every step in the test. So here's the second step with a screenshot, the third step with a screenshot, and on and on. So that's an example of how to automatically generate documentation for your Dynamics 365 implementation using Selenium and WebHooks. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.